Okay, boys and girls, you've pretty much had the whole First Impressions program now presented to you. I have a couple of last-minute things to go over with you. Remember, the judge in your mock trial will be the leader in the courtroom. That's who will have the script that keeps things moving in the right direction. If somebody forgets their part, the jurors or the lawyers or a witness, the judge can direct them again to get the trial moving on the right track again, okay? So you're all scripted. There's not that much to be overly stressed about in doing this. Please do not make up additional witnesses or change witnesses or the facts, because you will mess up your whole mock trial. We've had that happen before because this is scripted. That means you really need to stick with that script for it to work properly. And of course, you may use your scripts in your notes when you do your actual trial, whether you're live in the classroom or your teacher figures out how to do it via Zoom. I've actually judged 2 different law school mock trials. They took whole days to do. Yours would only take about an hour, but you can do these on a Zoom format. It's also important for the judge, the court clerk, and the bailiff to practice together as a team. There's the prosecution team, there's the defense team, that's the lawyers and witnesses for those sides, and then there's the judge, clerk, and bailiff court staff team. So it's important to practice together. The prosecution team needs to practice together, the defense team needs to practice together. So that will help your trial go more smoothly and you be better prepared by using your scripts and understanding how they work together with your team. And student attorneys don't need to worry about objections. We taught them to you because they're fun. It makes you think. But you really don't need to worry about them for your trial. If you learn them really well and you want to use them, you can. And then the judge will just need to rule either sustained or overrule on your objections. As far as the jurors, as I told you early on, play a really important role in the trial because they get to decide, without this being scripted, if the wolf is guilty or not guilty. So what they do first is, just like in a lot of real court cases, they will fill out a questionnaire, a juror questionnaire. This is in the packet that you'll have from your teacher or downloaded for you. And have fun with it. The jurors should write their real name, their student name, but then you get to make up what animal are you going to be and where do you live. For example, I'm a bear and I live in a cave. Or I'm a fox and I live in the forest. And then you're asked a series of questions. In real court cases, jurors either orally, that's verbally, answer questions, or they fill out a questionnaire in writing like this. It depends on the case. So you'll do that. But when you get into the courtroom for your mock trial, that would be your classroom probably set up, you'll be having a speaking role for a minute because you'll get to say a little bit about yourself during the mock trial. So you'll want to have your juror questionnaire form filled out and ready to go, and you can bring it to the courtroom too, or your makeshift courtroom in the classroom, so that you can use that when it's time for you to state your name and who you are and where you live, all that stuff. So after a jury is selected for a trial, the juror's job is to listen really carefully to all of the witnesses and to really examine the evidence that's presented, because you're going to decide whether or not the wolf is guilty or not guilty based on what you see and hear in the courtroom during your trial. So your classroom can be your courtroom for that. And you get to take notes, and you can use your notes when you deliberate. What that means is you talk about the case with each other. You listen. It's 2 parts. You listen to the other jurors, and you volunteer your opinion, because each person should participate in that process to reach a fair and impartial verdict. That means we want it to be not based on friendships and not based on something you heard on the internet or TV. We want it to be based on what's in that trial that you heard. So when you go with the bailiff into the deliberation area, or the jury room we call that, we have one person that the jury picks to be their foreperson, or kind of their spokesperson. That's the one who will end up taking the vote of guilty or not guilty of all of you in the jury room. And if you can decide on the wolf being guilty or not guilty, then that foreperson signs and dates the form and fills it out. But this is the vote of all of the jurors, not just the foreperson. It's important that all of you use your own brain, your own mind, and make up your own decision on this. Don't just go with what your friends say on this, okay? But you're supposed to share your ideas to come up with a fair verdict. So the foreperson leads the discussions and then lets the bailiff know you've reached the verdict, and then the bailiff takes the verdict to the court clerk. And as my clerk, Allison, told you, the clerk reads that verdict in the courtroom. And it's the jurors' job to decide for themselves and not feel pressured one way or the other. There should be a lot of respect in the jury room, no kind of threats or intimidation, just like in a real jury room, okay? That's very important. Now, the judge will have what's called a judge's script, okay? And the judge follows that. It starts with a bailiff announcing court's in session, and the judge comes to the judge's seat and hits with the gavel and says, "Please be seated." Okay, because remember, when the bailiff yells, "All rise, court's in session," we know what all rise means. Stand up, okay? All the jurors, all the lawyers, anybody in the courtroom, the spectators, we call them, everybody stands up, okay? And then you're told when to be seated. Okay, I also have a little homework for you, and that is there's a jury handbook that's been downloaded in the materials, and it's very informative. It's what we give real jurors that come into the courtroom. And it explains the trial process from jury selection to how a real trial goes, like you saw our little mini mock trial we did for you, how there's an opening statement after the jury's selected, there's the witnesses testify, the evidence is presented, there's closing argument, then the judge instructs the jury on the law, and the jurors go out, deliberate, come back with a verdict. All of that is in this brochure that you can share with your family. There's also a whole bunch of terms there in a glossary at the end that could be very helpful for you in the future. If you are curious, you forget, what does plaintiff mean again? Well, yeah, that's the civil case, the person who is suing somebody else. Okay, so it's kind of a nice little brochure, and you can have that downloaded as well. So the last part of the program will be our courthouse tour, and we'll actually do a little bigger tour for you than we normally do when you come in live to the courtroom. The reason is we're trying to make up for not being able to have you visit with us live, because we definitely miss you very much and would like to be there live with you, but we'll give you a good courthouse tour, okay? All right, till we meet again. Bye-bye.